Welcome back to Nourished Inside Out. I am here with Michael. He is a current Air Force medic and a life coach. Thank you for joining us today.
Aneta, it's my pleasure. Thank you for so much for having me.
Absolutely. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your story from having a military background and how you got into life coaching?
Absolutely. So I've currently been in the Air Force, in the reserves as a flight medic for 4 years. And a little bit on the backstory, I've been in EMT for over 10 years now. And I just love helping people physically. I have my God-given health and my God-given body to help people physically. I can stand the side of blood and I can hold my pressure, hold my own in high pressure situations. So I figured, like, why not put that to good use?
Absolutely. That's incredible. How did you transition from a military background to get into life coaching?
So I figured, I had a story that got me into life coaching, and I will definitely dive into that. But I had been in a dark spot in my life, and the partner I was with and currently am with, she recommended that I go see a life coach, and really transformed my life. I was in a dark spot, and Steve was my guy. Steve was my life coach, and I just now have that mission in my head. And if I can be someone else's Steve, I would be greatly happy.
Wow, that's incredible. It's amazing how we go through dark times, even though nobody wants to go through them, but they shape us to who we are. And they can also show us like a completely different life path on things that we didn't even imagine us seeing.
Absolutely. Like we spoke about a couple days ago, a big adage of mine is that pressure makes diamonds. And you can either fall in a dark hole, keep guiding and going that way, or you could rise up and use that as fuel. Well, I was lucky to find that the former path is that to just take it and use it as fuel and run with it, because we know lots of people who go down that dark hole and just use that victim mindset, and it's really tough to get out of.
Absolutely. What are some things that helped you overcome challenges of having a victim mindset when going through challenges and dark times?
Well, it was tough. Um, my story, I'll make it very brief. I was in the Air Force basic training, and big reason why I joined was because I was dating a girl who I'd been dating for a couple years who was in the Air Force, and I had a perspective on marrying this individual. Go through basic training. We didn't have our phones. We could only write letters, so we wrote back and forth. After I graduated basic training, got our phones back. Lo and behold, the girl I was dating and just broke it off. So I was at a pretty desperate time. I knew I was going to Las Vegas for my second phase of training, so hopped on the old dating website and or apps, you guess you'd call it, and found a girl who was compassionate and got got involved with her. And within 2 weeks of knowing each other, we ended up we got pregnant, or she got pregnant. I can't say we, but she ended up getting pregnant, and boom, 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 a lot happened, and I opted to try to start a family. I rolled the dice. I barely knew this individual, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Because I've always wanted to be a family man. I have great parents, and I knew I could just have that modeled after them. So, rolled the dice, got married very quickly, and it just went downhill from there. What had happened was we had an argument one night. She decided to call the police, and it was a domestic dispute. And I was falsely accused of a domestic violence charge, which is a misdemeanor. A little on down the road, another time where I tried to plead with her to drop these charges, it was brought to the judge that, yeah, I was trying to coerce a witness, which is a felony. So I was fighting a domestic violence charge, which was a misdemeanor, and then boom, tampering with a witness is a felony. So I was facing discharge from the military. I worked very hard to do that. I had a bunch of lawyer fees, And I found myself in that dark hole, which is was sped up, which is where I got the life coach. So finding to answer your question, I'm sorry that was long-winded, but to get out of that dark hole, it was pretty much just learning all these tips and tools from my life coach and learning the attitude of gratitude. And we can get into that, but the attitude of gratitude, I'm huge on because that was a mantra that I just imprinted in my brain. It took a lot of time, but it was a mantra that I learned to get back to who I am and what I can be grateful for, coupled with exercise and the love of a great partner who I'm currently married to now. She was the one who mentioned I get a life coach. Just knowing that I have a good support system behind me, doing the attitude of gratitude and making sure I can, combat these things with sleep habits and just mindful exercises.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's a very powerful and impactful story. Um, it's crazy because like somebody like myself who was once in like a very unhealthy relationship and I think kind of similar, like thought this was the one, like I want to start a family or we didn't start a family, but we did get married and when I was 21 and at 23, like I found myself filing for divorce. And it's just really goes back to having that attitude of gratitude because if you're not grateful for all of the things that led you to where you are, you wouldn't be who you are. And I think that's just it's a simple thing, but it takes you such a long way. It's just really learning to be thankful for the little things in life. So I like how you said that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of unique because I do have such a background in first responder. So I have a lot of fuel when it comes to attitude of gratitude because I've worked in hospitals, I've worked on ambulances, I worked at concerts, football games, and all these times where the only time I was actually working was at a time where someone was injured. And knowing that, hey, I didn't break my leg today, or hey, I wasn't diagnosed with cancer today, because I have that, imprinted in my mind of these incidences which I responded to. So it's kind of unique. And if people have trouble finding their attitude of gratitude, man, I think they can just find someone who knows who's a little bit more, higher up in their mental health to just remind them of like, hey, do you have a bed? You know, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have a car? Do you have a job? Which most people do. Some people don't, but most people do. And even if that, did you sit up out of bed? Just brings you back to like all these things of it's not hard to do. The hardest part, I think, of the attitude of gratitude is just sticking to it, having a little bit of discipline to have it. It's kind of cheesy, but a mantra. Yeah, the way I teach my clients is you do it enough and you're gonna realize that you are in the grocery line, just standing there staring up and like waiting to go, and you'll hear that inner talk of your attitude of gratitude. And so I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can learn to lift ourselves out of these dark times.
Yeah. What are some tools that or tips that have helped you cultivate that attitude of gratitude, like books, audios, hanging out with new friends?
Yeah, during that time of the dark period, I like to call it, friends were far and few between because I had been away on military orders for so long. It was really who you find out who the people who are close in your life are. And so it was kind of hard to lean on friends. Um, but what my life coach had taught me, Steve, was you can get out there and you can just be, even if you don't have my background, which a lot of people don't, but you'll have your own background. You can learn how to do some breathing exercises. I've learned out that to do some breathing exercises, like in the moment, it's really hard to do, but there are some things you can do. Lots of people lose their top when someone cuts them off in traffic. Uh, and, topped on a bunch of stuff that happened throughout the day. That could be the straw. I'm sorry, the straw that breaks the camel's back, as if it were. So I try to caution my clients is if that happens, you know, it's more than just a deep breath, but that kind of goes into it. So I found out that it's breathing techniques that happens in the moment, but long-term effects. I've read some books. Atomic Habits is one of them by James Clear. A lot of people have read that, and it's a really good book. The Power of Now I've read. I believe that's by Eckhart Tolle, and it's fundamental of learning how to just stay in the space and be present. People go down these long, dark roads of, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? But what you got to like pull back, throttle back a little bit and just realize it like, all right, focus on like what we can do right here, right now. And so, yeah, books help, breathing techniques. Part of my program, which I teach my clients, is just getting out there and moving. If you watch my social media, I'm big on getting at least 10,000 steps a day. A lot of that goes into it. Gets you breathing, gets your circulatory system going, gets you outside. Right now it's winter time, so it's a little bit tough on depending on where you are, but getting outside, getting some sunshine, getting some fresh air. It doesn't have to be, you know, 8-mile walk. It could just be a 10-minute walk, but spaced throughout the day, getting some movement. There's a huge bunch of studies out there how exercise just beats all these SSRIs in, fundamentally changing mood output and such. So, yeah, that's what I kind of go to.
That's great. Thank you for sharing those tips. I'm a firm believer that even going out for a walk for 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just go get some fresh air to like refresh your brain and refresh your mind because that also helps gain a lot of clarity. Something you said that you learned from the books was learning how to be more present. How can you explain to somebody if they're always distracted, whether it's in relationships, in their career, or just their day-to-day life? How can you encourage someone to be more present in the moments?
That's a great topic. What I encourage my clients to do at all times is that things that I have done myself. I'm a huge proponent in given instruction that I have known to do. So I'll never tell somebody to do something that I have not done myself. There's a ton of things to do out there, but what I find most useful is putting down the supercomputer that we have in our hands. It's been brought to my attention many times by my wife that, if I have a tough day or something happens where it kind of draws my energy, I'll try to just escape it all and hop into the phone because these apps are just tapped into zapping and keeping you um
And
yeah, engaged, as it will. So my first step is put away the cell phone because lots of people need to get comfortable being a little bit uncomfortable. People find to be in that space and just reach for their phone where, hey, put that down for a second. Being in the moment is very vital, especially if you have a partner, someone who relies on you. I recommend just taking the cell phone, putting it on the table face down, just looking around the room to see, what you can do. A lot of people will find themselves, just kind of uh, just adrift when they don't have their phone in their hands. So look around, like, okay, maybe the dishes need to be done. Maybe some clothes need to be folded. Maybe the stovetop needs to be cleaned. But especially if you have a partner, I recommend just asking them a question. I used to ask my wife all the time, "How was your day?" Most people ask, "How was your day?" And that gets a very short answer most times. Fine, okay. But what I like to change it up a little bit because words have so much meaning, is just asking your partner, "What was the favorite part of your day?" Or, "What was the worst part of your day?" A lot of people, will say, "Okay, well, that will just kind of draw towards negativity." So I kind of lean towards more of the positivity of like, "Hey, what was your favorite part of the day?" It's a little bit more engaged, a little bit of a makes your partner think a little bit. Okay, well, what was my favorite part? Hey, getting off work. All right, what was the hardest part of your day or such? Learning how to just conversate just a little bit different is masterful in learning how to just stay a little bit more engaged and speak to your partner, I think.
Yeah, that's very impactful because you were saying it's so easy to just get distracted by the phone and to just get caught up in a whole different world, even though you have somebody right in front of you, whether it's a friend, coworker, family member, person you're in a relationship with. You could be sitting next to each other, but that doesn't mean you're exactly presently there. I remember when I was going through some challenges, my old roommate back home, she would always ask me. She wouldn't "How was your day?" or "What can I do to help?" She would always say, "What do you need?" And the second she said, "What do you need?" I feel like I had a light bulb switch in my brain and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, actually, I need this. Actually, I need some space," or "I need to go out." And that, like, really helped a lot as well. So that's super, super helpful. Thank you for sharing those tips.
Yeah, yeah. What I've also employed in my life and my programs is it goes back to getting the steps. If you have a partner, a huge thing to do is do the after dinner walk. It helps with digestion. It helps break down the foods that are in your belly. I know it vastly changed my world when I learned that you can go for a walk and it really helps your digestion. But it also gets us out and gets us moving and gets us, you know, talking, puts the phone out of our hands and just learns to be like right there, right in the moment, talking about things that you otherwise wouldn't really talk to or ask about your partner. You find some great things out.
Exactly. How do you feel like a lack of presence can affect relationships over time?
It might sound a little bit vain, but lots of people, as me included, we all thrive on attention. And we when a partner is not engaged with us and it kind of just feels like you're there with a roommate or a friend, where if you're not there, what are they doing? What's the point? Because you want to have these well, a big quote of mine is not I'm sorry, it's not mine. It's I like to use it, but it's you can either live a hard life with easy conversations or you can live an easy life with hard conversations. So pick your poison there. But it doesn't always have to be hard conversation with your partner. Being absent from the situation can cause a huge separation to where then people start to wonder, what are they really thinking? When you have all these unknowns in your mind, it can just people's minds go to crazy areas. So I think not being present in the moment and not being engaging with your partner can lead to disastrous consequences.
I completely agree. I really do. Because even though, like, if you live with somebody, I believe it's one way of showing presence. But if you're not living with somebody or somebody that you're just dating and you go also like hours without talking to each other, that's like showing different ways to like that can create a lot of different crazy thoughts as well. And that's another way of showing that they're not present in your life. So I think there's just like, it really depends on the situation, but I agree. Like, you don't know, you can't read other people's minds. So I could be thinking something, the other person can be thinking something totally different. But also, if we don't communicate that presently, things go backwards really fast.
Yeah, and it's tough because people get swept up in their days and people have hard jobs, but we live in the golden age of communication. Uh, why not take advantage of that and just send a text or something to where, I to go the extra mile. Lots of people think about the extra mile and whew, why would I do that? But the reason why I married my wife, my current wife now, is because I'll be flying on a mission sometimes, and sometimes we fly in these like really cold aircrafts. It's not your regular commercial aircraft, and these some of these aircraft have been built in the Korean War, and they're just really old. So one of these aircraft in particular, it gets really cold on, and I don't bust out the winter jacket that I have much often. So I put on that jacket, and it's got a bunch of pockets, but I reached into one pocket, and there was a note in there. And it was a note from my wife just saying like, "Hey, really proud of you. Way to go. Miss you." And she's great at that stuff to where I'd never done that in relationships. So that's probably why I drifted along until I met her. But I try to do that to where I just take a sticky note and like slap it on her car of just like, "Hey, way to go." Because my wife is super smart and she's just super ambitious. I am blown away by her attitude and everything. So, I try to just, like, go that extra mile of just, like, grabbing my sticky notes and just throwing it on either her lunchbox or her car, and that just reinforces to where, okay, you might be away for a while, but it just brings you right back. It's always easy to give a text, so, hey, just give a text every once in a while to be like, "How's your day going?" Or, "How was your morning?" So
It doesn't require that much effort. That is so sweet. It's the simple things, and I feel like it can be overcomplicated so much that, "Oh, I have to be present in this person's life. Oh, I have to constantly be texting them, constantly calling them." No, just say, "Hey, hope you're having a great day, and I have a busy day today, so I'll talk to you when I can." It's simple,
Mhm.
isn't it?
It is, and that just kind of alleviates because I heard it so many times of it just the little things, and over time, the little things can get built up into bigger things, but if you try to just proactively show that you are in the in the relationship and working towards that, if you're not able to send a text. Oh, boys, if you're listening out there, leaving a note is a game changer because I feel like it's a very ladylike thing to do, and that's what I try to preach into my guys, my clients who are males. Of like, if you're in a relationship and you really do care, there are tiny little things that you can do that could just drive your credibility up. And so that just tells that person that, okay, that little note can save the text for the day. Or, I'm not trying to sub things out, but like if you are really slammed, if you're working a construction job and you can't have your phone on you, then boom, that note will take care of things and she'll be plenty fulfilled until dinner times when you get back. But it's little things like that, to just bolster the relationship and bolster the trust in things.
We're not
Yes, it just takes like my things.
we're not that complicated. It's the little.
Well, sometimes I believe we're different species, but we're all human at the base level. But I just think no, it's not rocket science. We are all as humans. We want four things. This is the pitch I give my people. We need to feel love. We need to feel safety. We need to be heard, and we need to be understood. So if you're in a relationship, you can cover all four of those things. And me as a life coach, I can only do two of those things. I can't love you, and I can't provide safety for you if we're just across the country. But I can hear you and I can understand you. But if you're in a relationship, try to nail those four things if you're really into it, and it can help you just immensely and throughout the relationship.
How can you make somebody feel safe in a relationship? What from personal experiences, just what have you done or your wife has done to make each other feel safe in the relationship?
Wow, right off the bat, we just learned that we could be vulnerable with each other. She met me My current wife met me in the thick of it. Now, I look back on it and it's like, well, maybe I wasn't the best time to be searching for love. But That's in the past, and it ended up just I swung for the fences and I ended up getting a home run. That's neither here nor there, but we learned right off the bat that we can trust each other by having vulnerable conversations. I mean, off the 3rd date, I had to tell her the news. My pitch was, "All right, here's the deal. I'm fighting a misdemeanor for a domestic dispute, and I got a baby on the way." That was a huge bomb to drop in the 3rd date, and I just was like, "If I see this going farther, I gotta tell her right now." It's not something you bring on the 1st date. Definitely, I mean, it's kinda risky to do on the 2nd, but, like, you go 3rd date and you're like, "Okay, this thing's gaining some steam, but I gotta lay the big, just lay it out there." And she took me at that and ran with it to where there were some tough times, not proud of it, but I was facing anxiety attacks when we were in our you know, first year of dating. I was, facing this discharge from the military. I was getting drowned in attorneys and their payments and stuff. I did not know what was going on. I had to wait a year for trial, and I went through 2 different lawyers. I was a little bit thrown off because everything had just I felt like I had no voice. The culture I live in California, don't wanna get too into it, but, like, the culture of California and the way things have gone through just not my experience. The more I tell this story, I get a lot of different stories about what happened to individuals such as myself. It's not a petri dish, it's a huge thing that happens. Now I think the whole justice system is you are guilty until proven innocent. It's not the whole thing. So you know, I got charged with this stuff and the military was coming back to me about like, well, we'll see what happens because I was charged and I kept asking my superior, I go, what happens if I'm actually convicted? And he goes, I don't know. And he's giving me this weird sound. I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, okay, that just means that like, well, it's a different road we're going to go down if you're charged. Well, side story, I've been working at the Veterans Affair Hospital, the VA hospital, and I worked in the emergency room. And I was working as an emergency room technician. And a lot of what's called 5150s would come in. And the 5150 is the police code designate. They have made a behavioral change to where they cannot designate their own decisions. 5150 just means they've just had a behavioral change to where they're now a little bit dangerous and they can't make their decisions. So they have to be on a psychiatric hold for 72 hours, I believe. And a lot of these veterans, I mean, that's another podcast we can get into, but we need to take care of our veterans in this country and the ball's been slipping a little bit. But these veterans would come in and they'd be on the streets because they made a mistake in the military and the military just kicked them to the curb. Well, they found themselves in some hard times and they would just want to just sleep in a bed that had a roof over it. So they would do something crazy and that get arrested, but nothing. I mean, this is their 3rd offense or 4th offense or whatever, but they don't care because they want it so bad, they just want a place to sleep. And so when that happens, they come into the VA hospital and the emergency room tech sits there and watches them until my shift is over. It's 72 hours. So I have 12-hour shift. So I sit there for my whole shift and just watch these people. Everything's taken out of the rooms. They can't hurt themselves. So they just sit. A lot of times I got to talking to these people. And like I said, they just made one, is it a mistake they made either whether it was drinking and driving or they had a domestic dispute or they talked back to a supervisor where they got into some hot water and they were discharged. They were kicked to the curb from the military. And when you get dishonorably discharged from the military, it's very hard to get a job. Very, very hard. That follows you around, I think, like today's scarlet letter. It's rough. So fast forwards, that's happening while I'm getting in these talks with my superiors about discharge. So that was very, very hectic. So again, going back to my current wife, it was tough. So feeling safe in a relationship is laying it all out there because it excuse me, well, you figure out that you like this person and you can see that it go in the distance, why would you try to fake who you are? You gotta lay it out on the line because people gotta take you for what you are. And so I had, I mean, I didn't have to marry her, but I've wanted to marry her because she put up with me. Like I said, I had a pretty good family life, and I hit my 30s, and that's when I got wrapped up in this debacle. And she saw me break down. I had panic attacks to where I didn't know what was happening in my body. I'd never had a panic attack before. I was depressed. I had never had depression before, and we were living together. So that was my safe space, and learning off right off the bat that I could be who I am with her and she could be who she is with me just strengthened our relationships tenfold. So I think feeling safe in a relationship is knowing that you can lean on people because we all have good days, we all have bad days, but in reality, you need a partner and you need to feel confident in this partner, knowing that you can expose your tough days to them and not have you judged by that. So in my personal relationship, it's knowing that I can have a free conversation and feel like I won't be judged. And same on her. She's got her family life that's real tough, and she can lean on me because it happens like clockwork. There's days where I'm off and I can lean on her, and it's when I'm strong, she can lean on me. It's very few and far between, but we have had the days where we're just both emotionally zapped. But that's what we bring it back to, just the attitude of gratitude. Hey, you have each other. And you have your health and you have the roof over your head. And you've got all this stuff. It just goes back to all these things. That's what I think.
Goes back to the basics of being grateful for the little things, even on the toughest days, because those help you overcome the toughest days. Thank you for sharing that story. It's very full and it's so incredible to see how where you were once upon a time, how much you've grown as an individual, not only yourself, but with your wife as well. I've always heard that you're not gonna find your person when in peace, you're gonna find them when you're in pieces, and if that person is willing to help you put the pieces back together with you, then you should keep them around.
Ooh, that was beautiful. I'd never heard that before. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that just gave me chills because preach, girl, because that was amazing. Wow.
That's the point of our struggle is we help each other one way or another. It's incredible. Wow. What's one piece of advice you would give to listeners who want to start showing up more fully and be more present in their relationships today?
We talked about it a few days ago, but I th I've when I ever sorry, when I speak to my prospective clients, I congratulate them because they have not essentially hit rock bottom, but they have reached a point to where they've asked for help. And what I call that is just building block 1. So in a relationship, getting down to block 1 is getting a little bit uncomfortable, getting a little bit vulnerable. If people are having a tough time in a relationship, get back to calling out what's going on. What am I doing? It's a great question to ask your partner because I ask that to my current wife all the time of like, what could I do better? Because there's days where I slip and I get into some habits where they're not too great. So being able to expose yourself a little bit and ask yourself some hard questions. Because like I said, you can either live an easy life with hard questions or a hard life with easy questions. And so getting down, and I recommend people if you're in a partnership, communication. It's beaten over the head with a hammer, but it is really, I mean, done that for a reason because people need to be able to speak to people freely. And especially when you're in a partnership to ask, hey, what can I do better? That's what I recommend.
I I think that goes back with vulnerability and safety. You know, it's like just do try to create a vulnerable and a safe space with somebody because you don't want to be going to everybody, but if you can have just that one person that you can go to, you know they're not going to judge you. That's a very valuable thing to have, especially these days with like the world of social media. So that's a really great tip.
Yeah, well, there it goes into all these adages of pressure makes diamonds. There's no growth in comfort. You got to get a little bit discomfort to feel growth. So I congratulate anyone who comes to me to ask for help because I don't know where we went off the track to feel like it is a poison to ask for help. It is a stigma that just I don't know why, because you break your leg, you go to the doctor. You crack your tooth, you go to the dentist. What happens when you break your heart? What happens when someone really puts you down and hurts your mental psyche? You're just gonna wallow in it? Like you're just gonna not ask for help? There are plenty of people out there, and it really doesn't take I mean, I realized I was a life coach for years before I actually got certified. It was just being able to hear people and understand people. I've been doing that for many years. And, so you don't have to go to hop online and look for, motivational speakers. It's finding that person in life who might be able to just hear you and understand you. Guarantee there's one person for everyone out there who will do that.
Wow. It makes total sense. I've never heard someone give that example of like you break a leg, you go to the doctor, they help you. You crack a tooth, and you go to the dentist and you get it fixed. I'm laughing because I ate like a flauta the other day and I literally chipped my tooth. So I went to the dentist the next day.
Yeah.
And they helped me and everything is fine. But like what about internally? If what happens if we're feeling sad or down? Who's gonna be there for us? I remember
It's
go ahead.
It's strange. I'm sorry to cut you off, but, like, literally, my wife, who I'm married to now, she came to me and she brought forth the life coach. And I had played sports in high school and, a big fan of sports, and I literally had that gut reaction of like, "Well, who's gonna tell me how to live? Is the life coach? Like, I've been living for 30 years. Who's gonna tell me how to live?" And I had that knee-jerk reaction of being like, "Okay, okay, cool. I'll get a life coach." Oh, but man, did it change my life. And that's what I implore to people of like, just it sounds a little strange to get to talk to a life coach, but it's monumental, especially when I mean, I know, I mean, I don't know, but like Elon Musk, all these influential people, Jeff Bezos, people who you think are like killing it. And, I guarantee maybe they didn't pay for a life coach, but they got someone in their life who like builds them up or is their hype man to say like, you got it, bro. You could do this. Uh, people Mel Robbins is another person I listen to and she talks about it and she's very great in breaking down how to be better and it's just she's got this whole, like, adage of "Let them." That's it. Let them. If you're having a tough day and someone's dragging pushing you around or whatever, it's like, "Alright, let them." Since launching my career and getting on social media, and, it's been a very short career, but I would say I've gotten more negativity than anything, and my wife is a big Mel Robbins fan, and she brought that to me because I mean, they made a derogatory comment, and people say don't hop into that and don't let them affect you like that because David Goggins, he goes, "You'll never be shit on than anyone that's doing better than you." And I need to take that and because like, okay, someone who left a comment on the video of me running and commented on my body. They probably did that from, like, sitting on the couch, and, like, they're just mad because they didn't get out for a run that day. To where it's like, it's comical. We're sensitive humans, but we gotta remember that, I try to take that as fuel. If someone who's trying to cause me negativity, that just means I'm getting to them, and that just means I'm doing something right.
100%.
So,
I completely agree with you. You're never gonna be judged by someone doing more than you. And, start filtering those people out because I remember in the beginning too when my background was with cosmetology once upon a time. So I started transitioning my Instagram from cosmetology to writing and podcasting. And you can see who's just creeping on your profile just to creep and to judge you. But then you have those people who will eventually support you. And your biggest supporters are going to be people who are strangers versus the people closest to you.
mm, right, because people who are doing better than you are only gonna give you positivity. They're not gonna give you negativity. It's only the people who wish they could do be as better as you're as good as you.
Absolutely. I remember I was listening to David Goggins a couple weeks ago, and I remember he said something that it literally stuck with me like a leech. He said, if you can do a live autopsy on yourself and see what needs to be healed, find your triggers, find your traumas, what do you need to work on? You would work on them a lot more if you just did like a live autopsy on yourself. Because I think a lot of the times we don't take the time to heal our inner self because we don't see it in the physical. Like you were saying, it's like doctor, dentist, you see it in the physical, you do it immediately, but not inside. So why don't we just do like a live autopsy and try to find like the root where these things like start from as well?
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, in that book, Atomic Habits, James Clear breaks down the whole thing of, well, we lean towards bad habits and getting your self-talk. Your negative self-talk can be a habit to where we are so fixated on the risk being put off. We want the reward right now, not knowing the cost, or putting the cost out of our memory. When people try to do better, it's really hard for people to stick to doing better. It's tough. Otherwise, everyone would do it. But the term of like doing better means you are taking the cost right now, but the benefit is far down the road. You start running or working out, that's costing you right now. You're feeling the cost, but what the benefit is happening farther down the road. When you take negative habits, you're getting the benefit right now, and the cost is coming later. So it's talking, when you said talking about that live autopsy, it goes into, all right, a way to simplifies that is what would tomorrow you want you to do today? That's something I try to pound into my clients too, because that live autopsy thing is, yeah, everyone can see their laceration on their calf get stitched up. Everyone can feel that tooth or whatever, but the mind is vitally important to where that can help you heal in so many different ways.
Wow. So great. Such a great message. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah. What do you think is one way that you yourself would try to get out of a disheartening situation?
A disoriented situation.
Disheartening.
Oh, disheartening. I would first take a step back and I will try to analyze the situation and try to understand where it's coming from. Because for somebody like myself, I was in a very abusive relationship, but not physically. It was very psychologically abusive. So there's a lot of things that I question. Like, for example, like if I'm talking to somebody and they're not being fully present, as in like ignoring my texts or not being fully present in what I'm doing and who I'm with, then I start to get these questions in my mind and it's so easy for me to make up stories in my head based on previous experiences. So first what I'm learning to do is understand where those thoughts are coming from and then try to communicate with that person. And if they want to understand and help me, that's great. But if they don't understand and they don't want to try to understand where I'm coming from, then respectfully, I would make a decision to move on. And that's just like things that I'm learning and growing through now.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that because we all are different creatures and we all respond to things different ways. But learning how to recognize that in the moment, there's things you can do. It's very vital. So thank you.
Yeah, sometimes we just have to take a step back, understand where that thing or that emotion or that thought is coming from, and see if it's something that you can fix and talk through, or if it's something that, like, if it matters or not. Is it going to matter in 5 minutes? Is it going to matter in 5 years? You have to look at that. Because also, something that I've learned is when you get fearful about something, remind yourself fear is false evidence appearing real. 85% of the things that you fear don't even come true. So I think for me, it's just learning how to have healthier relationships as well.
It's awesome. What you really touched on was that false evidence appearing real. That's awesome. Um, I think a good way to catalog those feelings is a lot of people will, when I only got, I'm, I'm a, I'm a statistic. I only got into journaling because I had a life coach and he recommended it. I should have been doing a lot longer, but that was a time where I was not doing well. And it was a good way to express my feelings on the page. But I've learned that you don't have to do it only when you have hard days. When you have a great day, I have a little notes app in my phone of, today it's titled of things that went well. And it's literally, I do it every day and it's getting a little bit repetitive, but like I woke up and, it had some other things where, like, I hit, like, PR goals of lifting and everything, so I hit that, and, I got promoted in my civilian job, and I got, promoted in the military, so I'll put that stuff on there, but it's a thing where, if you do it when things are going well, you journal your feelings and tactics on what you do on a good day. You'll eventually fall down because our lives are roller coasters. When you eventually hit that down dip, you can get back into your journal and be like, well, what did I do that was a good day? And what were the things that I did to employ that really helped me or the situation? So that's what I also recommend to my clients is, hey, journal all the time, at least once a day, to where if it's a great day, you're going to have notes on that to bring it back to like, well, when you have a down day, get back into the mix.
Absolutely. Journaling is it's such a simple thing to do, but it's so powerful because it's like your safe space. You don't have to share it with anybody. You can write your thoughts, lock it up, hide it, and honestly, you can even burn it at the end if you want. So nobody has to see those thoughts. And it's such a vulnerable and safe space. I love journaling.
Yeah, and it was tough for me because when in the dark days, it was getting a little bit hard to express my feelings. I've always found it challenging for me to do that, and through my clients, which are mostly men, that's a large statistic of it's hard for guys to talk about how they feel. So what I recommend, it's called Mind Journal. It's a company called Mind Journal. I'm not sponsored by them in any way, but I really like it because you pop open that journal and it gives you prompts of things that you would like to talk about. So it prompts you to write things rather than me just saying like, I don't like today. It's like, okay, so what is your feeling that's driving you? Or what is one thing that you would think you could do in 30 days? What is one thing that you wish you could tell someone you aspire to be? things like that, just to get your juices flowing, kind of thing. So
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. So important. Just get the thoughts out, whether it's to your journal, to somebody you trust, dog. Your dog is great if you have a dog. They won't tell anybody. I mean, they're great.
there's a bunch of studies out there that if you literally pet a dog, it improves your mood.
Isn't that so crazy? I even though, like, when I was, like, going through like, some challenges, I would just go to the Anti-Cruelty Society in Chicago, and you can just go walk a dog and take him home for, like, 2 hours and give him back.
That's amazing. When I was in basic, we're away from our families. We're away on holidays and stuff, so it's tough. But I remember in the barracks, they call they would bring these huge fluffy dogs. And I didn't know about that stat yet, but they would just hang out and lay them down. They'd be these very lethargic dogs that just lay down there, and it would brought everyone so much joy. And it totally makes sense. If you just pet a dog, there's statistics, like there's proven that there's endorphins and dopamine that just flows through your circulatory system and just gets it's my dog is a character, but it doesn't have to be that much of a character to it's just any dog would really do.
Much love to them, much love. That's awesome, Michael. Well, where can people find you? Where can they support you?
Absolutely. My company is called Next Level Mentality. It's I have a TikTok of Next Level Mentality, and I have my Instagram of Next Level Mentality. That's NXTLVL Mentality. And yeah, I that's where people can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for today. I'll also have those links to your profiles in the description below so people can stay in touch with you.
And this has been such a great opportunity, and I want to just send so much thanks your way because from the start, you were so big on connecting, and even when I see you on threads, you're so outspoken and giving people positivity, and I just think you can keep going, and you're great. You're destined for great things. So I want to thank you so much for having me on today and giving me this platform.
Appreciate you. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you again.
All right, you have a great night.
Too.
Thanks.